Meditations on the Tarot, Letter 14, Temperance. Hear us, Lord, Holy Lord, Almighty Father, Eternal God, and deign to send your holy angel from heaven to guard, cherish, protect, visit and defend all who are gathered together in this place. Liturgical prayer of the introductory service preceding the solemn Mass. Everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. The water that I shall give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. John 4:13-14. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born anew, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. John 3:3. By upbringing and intellectual training, I belong to the children of heaven, but by temperament and by my professional studies, I am a child of the earth. Situated thus by life at the heart of two worlds, with whose theory, idiom and feelings intimate experience has made me familiar, I have not erected any watertight bulkhead inside myself. On the contrary, I have allowed two apparently conflicting influences full freedom to react upon one another deep within me. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Dear unknown friend, the card of the 14th Major Arcanum of the Tarot places us in the presence of an angel in a robe which is half red and half blue, who is accomplishing, or presiding over the accomplishment of, a strange act, where he is pouring colourless water from one vase into another, or rather he is making it gush almost horizontally between the two vases, at an angle of about 45 degrees, the vases being held at a considerable distance from one another. An intellectual shock, and therefore an arcanum, something which one has to take hold of and apprehend beyond the usual plane of experience and thought. This invites us, therefore, to profound meditation, to a spiritual exercise. Let us follow this invitation. What is the problem that the card, its whole context, arouses spontaneously in the mind of he who looks at it attentively? What is the message of the angel with two wings in the red and blue robe, holding two vases, one red and one blue, and making water gush in a mysterious way from one vase to the other? Is he not the one who bears the good news that beyond the duality of either or, there is, or is possible, still that of not only but also, or both and? Does not the totality of the card, the angel of the card, suggest the problem of cooperating polarity or integrated duality? Does it not first of all suggest the presentiment or suspicion that perhaps it is thanks to the two wings, the two arms, the two colours of the robe, the two vases, that the water pours forth? That this water is the fruit and the gift of the both and, of integrated duality, which jumps to one's attention as one looks at the card. Thus the idea which is presented first of all to the mind in the presence of the card of the 14th Arcanum belongs to the range of ideas relating to polarity, and what this latter offers in possibilities for the spiritual knowledge and realization, mystical, gnostic and magical, of the Hermeticist. In preceding letters, there has already been the question, in diverse connections, of a twofold polarity, that of polemic, or war, which produces energy of an electrical kind, and that of cooperation, or peace, which releases force of a vital nature. Now, the angel of the card of the 14th Arcanum invites us to return to the problem of this double polarity and twofold dynamic, in promising to throw new light on this subject. Let us therefore return to this. An expert of the first order in spiritual life and authentic spiritual experience, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, has bequeathed to posterity a doctrine of fundamental importance. This is his doctrine of the divine image and likeness of man. This doctrine lends itself admirably to serve as a point of departure for a thoroughgoing investigation of this twofold polarity. The following are its essential points. God made man in his image and likeness. Genesis 1:26. The divine image and the divine likeness coincided in the first man, before the original sin. but their coincidence did not persist after the fall. The image has remained intact, but the initial likeness has been lost. Man is, following the original sin, in the disfigurement of unlikeness, whilst conserving the image. Quote, "Man was made in the image and likeness of God. In image he possesses freedom of will, and in likeness he possesses virtues. The likeness has been destroyed. However, man conserves the image. The image can be burnt in hell, but not consumed. It is damaged, but not destroyed. Through fate as such it is not effaced, but subsists. Wherever the soul is, there also will be the image. It is not so with the likeness. This remains in the soul which accomplishes the good. In the soul which sins it is wretchedly transformed. The soul which has sinned ranks with beasts devoid of intelligence." St. Bernard of Clairvaux, Sermon on the Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Volume 1, page 106. According to St. Bernard, the image is therefore the essential structure of the human being, and the likeness in him is the totality of functions or the functional structure. It is the essential structure of the human being, the image, which is indestructible and which establishes freedom in an inalienable and irremovable way. Man is free and remains so through all eternity, on earth, in hell, in purgatory, in heaven, always and everywhere. Freedom is therefore an absolute fact. As such, it entails immortality, the argument that one finds again in Immanuel Kant's Critique of Practical Reason, for what is his categorical imperative, if not the divine image in man? With respect to the likeness or totality of functions of the human being, a hotbed of sin, with its attractions towards evil, has taken root there, and it is immortal only in proportion to the measure that it conforms again to its image. Its immortality is optional. This is the essence of St. Bernard's doctrine. It gives rise to the question, if the divine image in man has not undergone any weakening, and if the divine likeness in him has partly abrogated, and has had to make way for inclinations and habits tending towards evil, is there something in human life which counterbalances the bad inclinations in man's functional organism, opposing good inclinations to them? Yes, there is certainly something added to man's functional organism to play in it the role of a counterweight to the leverage of vicious inclinations and habit which have become established since the primordial fall. This is the guardian angel. The guardian angel accompanies as a faithful ally the divine image in man, just as vicious inclinations have made their way into the human functional organism which was, before the fall, the divine likeness. The guardian angel undertakes the functions destroyed by original sin in the likeness, and fills the breach wrought by them. He substitutes himself for functions destroyed through the fall. As the prayer of the service of aspersion, that I have put at the head of this letter, states it, in praying to God to deign to send from heaven his holy angel, to guard, cherish, protect, visit and defend all those who are gathered together in this place, the angel acquits his charge in 5 ways. He guards, cherishes, protects, visits and defends. He is therefore a flaming star, a luminous pentagram above man. He guards memory, i.e. the continuity of the great past in the present, which is the preparation for the great future. It is the guardian angel who takes care that there is a connection between the great yesterday, today and tomorrow of the human soul. He is a perpetual memento with regard to the primordial likeness, with regard to the eternal mission assigned to the soul in the cosmic symphony, and with regard to the special room for the soul in my Father's house, where there are many rooms. John 14:2. If it is necessary, the guardian angel awakens recollections of the soul's previous earthly lives in order to establish continuity of endeavour, of the quest and aspiration of the soul from life to life, so that particular lives are not merely isolated episodes, but constitute the stages of a single path towards one sole end. The guardian angel cherishes the endeavour, quest and aspiration of the soul engaged on this way. This means to say that he fills in the breaks in the psychic functional organism due to the disfigurement of the likeness, and makes up for its failings, given the soul's goodwill towards it. For support never signifies substitution of the angel's will for that of man. The will remains free, always and everywhere. The guardian angel never touches on man's free will, and resigns himself to await the decision or choice made in the inviolable sanctuary of free will, in order to lend his assistance immediately if it is just, or to remain a passive observer reduced alone to prayer if it is not. Just as the guardian angel is sometimes constrained not to participate in the soul's activity, this activity not being in accord with the divine image of the soul, so also he can sometimes take a greater part in human activity than usual, this activity being of a nature not simply permitted but also called for. Then the guardian angel descends from the point of his ordinary post into the domain of human activity. He then visits the human being. Such visits of the guardian angel do sometimes take place, when their possibility and necessity coincide. But what the guardian angel does unceasingly is to protect the human being. Here he makes up for the failings of the human senses, which are deprived of their clairvoyance from before the original sin. He is the clairvoyant helping the non-clairvoyant with respect to psychic and physical temptations and dangers. He warns, informs, and helps to appreciate. Nevertheless, what he never does is to suppress the occasions themselves of temptation. For, as St. Anthony the Great said, without temptation there is no spiritual progress. Temptation belongs as an integral part to the exercise of human free will, which is inviolable, both for an angel and for a demon. With respect to the last of the 5 functions of the guardian angel concerning man, namely his defense, it differs from the others in that it is turned above, towards heaven, and is no longer directed below or horizontally. In dealing with the question of the defense that the guardian angel accords to his protégé, we approach the holy mystery of the very heart of the guardian angel. For the nature of angelic love is revealed here, of which the following are some indications. Guardian angels remain above their protégés. This means to say, amongst other things, that they screen him from heaven, from the look directed below from above. The fact that human beings on earth are screened by their guardian angels from divine justice signifies, other than guardians supporting, protecting, and contacting, the guardian angels are the defenders, the advocates of man before divine justice. Just as Moses said to the Lord when the children of Israel had committed the mortal sin of having preferred a god made of gold to the living God. But now if thou wilt forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book which thou hast written. Exodus 32:32. So do guardian angels cover their protégés before the face of divine justice. This amounts to the declaration, whether explicit or implicit is not important. Forgive them their sins. If not, efface us from the book of life that you have written. This is the defense of guardian angels for their protégés. The guardian angel covers his protégé with his wings, in conferring on him his own merits before the eyes of divine justice, and also in taking on himself the faults of his protégé before the eyes of divine justice. It is as if he says, if the lightning of divine wrath must strike my protégé, my child, may it strike me instead of him, or if he must be struck, may it strike both of us together. The guardian angel defends his protégé like a mother defends her child, without regard to whether he may be good or bad. It is the mystery of maternal love which lives in the heart of the guardian angel. Not all angels are guardian angels. There are others who have diverse missions. But guardian angels, insofar as they are guardian angels, are mothers of their protégés. This is why traditional art presents them as winged females. And this is why the card of the 14th Arcanum of the Tarot also openly presents the angel as a winged female, dressing in a woman's robe, half blue and half red. Guardian angels, or should I use the feminine form, angelines, are the manifestation of high and pure maternal love. For this reason, the Holy Virgin and Mother of God bears the liturgical title Regina Angelorum, Queen of the Angels. It is the maternal love in her that she has in common with the guardian angels, and which, in surpassing theirs, makes her their queen. There are, as I said above, other angels who are not guardian angels. I am not speaking of the 8 celestial hierarchies above that of angels. I am speaking solely of the hierarchy of the angels, i.e. of the 9th celestial hierarchy. There are angels who are messengers, i.e. angels, or angeli, messengers in Greek, in the proper sense of the word. There are angels with special missions and tasks, angels of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Virgin, death, life, karma, relationships between different spheres, revelations of wisdom, knowledge, ascetic discipline, and many others. Many of them represent paternal love, or rather fraternal love. Here I do not want to say anything either for or against what Swedenborg says concerning the sex of angels, but what I would like to portray here is the maternal love of guardian angels, and that there are other angels who represent paternal love and also fraternal love. And it is in this sense, and only in this sense, that I would like you, dear unknown friend, to think of the angels as entities in whom prevails either the tenderness of maternal love or the justice of paternal love. For what it is a matter of is not to project earthly sexuality upon heaven, but rather, on the contrary, to see in the former a reflection, although often disfigured, of the polarity from above. I may add that the Jewish Kabbalah, above all the Zohar, teaches admirably the lesson of thinking of things here below as the reflection of things from above, and not inversely. The Zohar is truly one of the better schools of purity and chastity concerning all that relates to husband and wife, father and mother, son and daughter, fiancé and fiancée, at one and the same time in the spiritual, soul and physical words. For true chastity is not to refuse to look at and to see, or even to deny, but rather to see the celestial prototypes through and beyond things here below. And it is this chastity that one finds and apprehends in the Zohar, the book of splendor of the Jewish Kabbalah. But let us return to guardian angels. The angels, including guardian angels, live and move exclusively in the vertical. Ascent and descent constitute the law of their life, their respiration. They ascend towards God, they descend towards mankind. It is said that the angels are in perpetual contemplation of God. They are, if one understands by contemplation, the state of being in permanent contact with the Holy Trinity, and of being blinded by its light. It is the dark contemplation of which St. John of the Cross spoke, which is that of the angels. They do not see God, they are united to him substantially. With respect to guardian angels, neither do they see one another, nor do they see entities of the other hierarchies, archangels, principalities, powers, virtues, dominions, thrones, cherubim and seraphim. For the presence of transcendental light in them envelops in darkness their perception of the intermediary spheres between God and mankind. It is the latter sphere that they see, or rather the spheres of their protégés. It is here that they make use of this clairvoyance, which the human being, who has lost it, has need of for the protection it affords. It is here also that the angels display the geniality of synthetic and profound understanding, without parallel, which has merited them, on the part of human beings, with the attribute of omniscience. They are not omniscient, but the facility with which they orientate themselves in human things and grasp them, at contact with which their dark divine wisdom becomes resplendent, has so impressed human beings who have had the experience of consciously meeting with them, that they have been led to consider them as omniscient. It is to this impression that has been gained of angels that the word genius owes its original meaning, namely that of superhuman intelligence. But, and this is the tragic side of angelic existence, this geniality shows up only when the human being has need of it, when he makes room for the flashing forth of its illumination. The angel depends on man in his creative activity. If the human being does not ask for it, if he turns away from him, the angel has no motive for creative activity. He can then fall into a state of consciousness where all his creative geniality remains in potential and does not manifest. It is a state of vegetation or twilight existence, comparable to sleep from the human point of view. An angel who has nothing to exist for is a tragedy in the spiritual world. Therefore, dear unknown friend, think of your guardian angel. Think of him when you have problems, questions to resolve, tasks to accomplish, plans to formulate, cares and fears to appease. Think of him as a luminous cloud of maternal love above you, moved by the sole desire to serve you and to be useful to you. Do not allow the scruple to arise in you, however noble it may be, that when you appeal to your guardian angel, you are allowing an entity to come between you and God, who is not God, and that therefore you abandon the aspiration to immediate contact between your soul and God, to the direct and authentic touch of God without intermediary. For the guardian angel will never interpose himself between your soul and God in any way, even to an infinitesimal degree, to impede the occurrence of the Song of Songs of your soul and God. He has no other concern than to make these immediate and authentic contacts possible, to render your soul disposed to them, and he withdraws as soon as his Lord and yours draws near to his soul. The guardian angel is the friend of the bride at the spiritual marriage of the soul and God. Just as the friend of the husband who prepared the way of the Lord and made his paths straight was obedient to the law of the friend of the husband, he must increase, but I must decrease, John 3:30. So does the friend of the bride, who prepares the way of the Lord and makes his paths straight, obey the same law. The guardian angel withdraws before the approach of one who is greater than he. There is what is called in Christian Hermeticism the freeing of the guardian angel. The guardian angel is freed, often in order to be able to acquit new missions, when the soul has acquired the disposition of its part of likeness in order to experience the divine more intimately and more immediately, which corresponds to another hierarchical degree. Then it is an archangel who replaces the freed guardian angel. Human beings whose guardian is an archangel have not only new experiences of the divine in their inner life, but also, through this very fact, receive a new and objective vocation. They become representatives of a human group, a nation, or a human karmic community, which means to say that from this time onwards their actions will no longer be purely personal, but will at the same time have significance and value for those of the human community that they represent. It was so for Daniel, who, in praying the following, was acting not only in his name, but also, and above all, in the name of the people of Israel. We have sinned and done wrong, and acted wickedly, and rebelled, turning aside from thy commandments and ordinances. Now therefore, O our God, hearken to the prayer of thy servant, and to his supplications, and for the love of the Lord, cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary, which is desolate. O my God, incline thy ear and hear. Open thy eyes and behold our desolations, and the city which is called by thy name. Daniel 9:5-17-18. And it was the archangel Gabriel who came to him in swift flight at the time of the evening sacrifice. He came to give him wisdom and understanding. Daniel 9:21-22. Here we have an example of the freeing of the guardian angel and of the assumption of his responsibility by an archangel, in this case the archangel Gabriel. It also happens sometimes that the archangel is freed as well. Then it is an entity from the hierarchy of powers, or Elohim, which replaces the archangel. The human being then becomes a representative of the future of humanity. He lives in the present what mankind someday is due to experience in future centuries. It is thus that Moses, Elijah, and David, for example, were under the protection of the wings of an Elohim, and not only their words, but also their lives themselves were prophetic. But one could make the objection that it is God himself who was revealed and spoke to Moses, Elijah, and David, and not an entity of the hierarchy of powers, or Elohim. There is reason to reply to this objection that just as there were human prophets through whose mouths the Holy Spirit spoke, so also there were hierarchical entities through whom the Holy Spirit, the Son and the Father spoke and acted. Thus the three angels who appeared to Abraham in the heat of the day, Genesis 18, spoke and acted as the Holy Trinity, Father, Son and Holy Spirit. It was the Holy Trinity who spoke through them to Abraham. Similarly, Jahveh Elohim was the bearer or representative of God, of his word and his power, in the accomplishment of the mission with which he was charged by the Holy Trinity, namely that of preparation for the incarnation of Christ. Insofar as he was an authorized agent representing God, Jahveh Elohim brought the providential design of the incarnation to realization. Insofar as he was an Elohim or power, he acted as guardian entity of Moses, Elijah, and David. Lastly, a guardian Elohim, and there are many of them, can also be freed. Then it is an entity of the first hierarchy, a seraphim, who replaces him. It was so for St. Francis of Assisi. The seraphim who gave him the teaching of the crucifixion whereby he gained the stigmata, the seraphim in the vision of St. Francis, was his guardian. This is why St. Francis represents more than mankind. What he represents is divinized humanity. This is the God-man, Jesus Christ himself. However, stigmata are not always visible. There are stigmata, so to say, turned outside, and there are stigmata turned within. But all those who are under the guardianship of a seraphim bear the stigmata, visible or invisible, for they represent the Christ. With respect to stigmata, this subject has been treated from a practical point of view in the fifth letter on the Arcanum, the Pope. It is not fitting to treat it theoretically. Respect forbids me. The following is what St. John of the Cross said concerning the stigmata of St. Francis. It will happen that while the soul is inflamed with the love of God, it will feel that a seraphim is assailing it by means of an arrow or dart which is all afire with love. And the seraphim pierces and cauterizes this soul, which, like a red-hot coal, or better, a flame, is already enkindled. And then in this cauterization, when the soul is transpierced with that dart, the flame gushes forth vehemently and with a sudden ascent, and being wounded by this fiery dart, the soul feels the wound with unsurpassable delight. God sometimes permits an effect to extend to the bodily senses in the fashion in which it existed interiorly. The wound and sore then appears outwardly, as happened when the seraphim wounded St. Francis. When the soul is wounded with love by the 5 wounds, the effect extends to the body, and these wounds are impressed on the body, and it is wounded, just as the soul is wounded with love. God does not usually bestow a favour upon the body without bestowing it first and principally upon the soul. St. John of the Cross, The Living Flame of Love, 2:9. You see, therefore, dear unknown friend, how it is with regard to the guardian angel and the union of the soul with God. There is no reason to fear that the least hindrance to this union can ever arise on the part of the entities who are spiritual guardians of the human soul. On the contrary, rather, it is they who make it at all possible, and even beyond the possible, for the soul to be united with God in complete intimacy, and with perfect authenticity and freedom. The friend of the wife only leads the wife to the husband, then she withdraws. Her joy is that of herself diminishing, and of seeing that of the wife increase. The card of the 14th Arcanum represents a winged female. What do the wings that she has, and the wings of the hierarchical entities in general, signify? Tentacles, paws, arms, wings. Are they not simply diverse forms manifesting a common prototype or principle? They are, insofar as they express the desire to bear the sense of touch further, to be able to touch things more removed than those in the immediate neighbourhood of the surface of the body. They are active extensions of the passive and receptive sense of touch, which is spread out over the surface of the organism. In making use of them, the sense of touch makes excursions from its usual orbit circumscribed by the skin which covers the body. The organs of action are simply crystallized will. I walk not because I have legs, but rather, on the contrary, I have legs because I have the will to move about. I touch, I take, and I give, not because I have arms, but I have arms because I have the will to touch, to take, and to give. The what of the will engenders the how of the action, the organ, and not inversely. The arms are therefore the expression of the will to bear touch further than the surface of one's own body. They are the manifestation of extended touch, due to the will to touch things at a distance. It is similar with wings. They are also an exteriorized will, a will become organ. This is the will to go out from the usual orbit, not only in the horizontal, but also in the vertical, not only to bear touch forward, but also to bear it above. Wings express the will for movement according to a cross, i.e., not only that of expansion on a plane, but also that of elevation to another plane. All this is related to the whole corporeal organism, i.e., the etheric and astral bodies as well as the physical body. Therefore there are physical wings, as with birds, etheric wings, and astral wings. The wings of the subtle bodies, the vital body and the soul body, like the physical wings of birds with regard to the air, are organs of active contact with the air, i.e., with the substance and currents of the spiritual world. Just as the bird, whose body is solid and liquid, elevates itself by means of wings from the solid and liquid regions into that of the air, so does the angel elevate itself by means of currents of vital and psychic energy, which correspond to wings, into the spiritual world higher than vital and astral elements. Here the analogy stops, for there is also an essential difference between the functioning of the physical wings of a bird and the operation of the wings, currents of vital and psychic forces, of an angel. It is as follows. The bird, in flying, supports itself on the air in order to overcome terrestrial gravitation. Its flying results from its effort. It beats the air with its wings, directed against terrestrial gravitation. However, it is the opposite for an angel. Its flying is not a mechanical operation of sculling in the air, as is the case with a bird, but it is a magical operation of the establishing of contact with celestial gravitation, i.e., with divine attraction. He does not need to use his wings against terrestrial gravitation, but rather he employs them in order to put himself in contact with celestial gravitation. It is the touch of divine love that the angel seeks and finds by means of his wings, and which raises him in ecstasy to a higher sphere. One could thus say in a concise way, the bird flies by beating its wings against the air, by resting on the air. The angel flies by immobilizing its wings after having touched God. The bird flies thanks to the air, the angel flies thanks to God. In other words, the angel's wings constitute semi-organic links with God. Links, for there are two. One wing holds him in contact with divine understanding, and the other with divine memory or imagination. The two wings are therefore related to the contemplative and creative aspects of God, which in their turn correspond to the divine image and likeness in man of which Genesis speaks. For the image is the analogous structural relationship of the kernel of the human being, his higher self, or according to Leibniz, his monad, with God at rest, whilst the likeness is the analogous functional relationship of the human being, i.e. his three powers, understanding, imagination, and will, with God in action. Now, the two angelic wings are the angel's links with the eternal Sabbath, and the eternal creativity of God, or, in other words, with divine gnosis and divine magic. It is by means of the Gnostic, or left wing, that the angel is in contemplation of divine wisdom, and it is by means of the magical, or right wing, that he is active in his capacity as messenger, or angel. This is the principle of polarity underlying the duality of the wings. The principle remains valid also for angels, and for entities from other spiritual hierarchies, who have more than 2 wings, 16 for example. It will be the task of a future science of angelology to grasp the reason or reasons for the plurality of wings of certain angelic entities. This future science will develop, as there is reason to hope, within the heart of mystical theology, the first layer of which was given by Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, or Pseudo-Dionysius, as the learned take pleasure in designating the founder of mystical theology. With respect to us, we have to restrict ourselves to a general explanation of the 2 wings of angels, in reminding ourselves that it is a matter here of a meditation on the 14th arcanum of the tarot, whose card represents an entity with 2 wings, which constitutes, consequently, the problem which occupies us here. From tradition, we know that there are also human beings endowed with wings. Thus, the right panel of a triptych forming the circle of Odysseus, a Russian icon from the hand of Nicephorus Savine, shows St. John the Baptist as winged, beginning of the 17th century, School of Stroganov, at present in Tretiakov Gallery, Moscow. Similarly, in place of the hermit of the Marseille tarot, the Bologna tarot shows a winged patriarch who walks laboriously, bent double on 2 crutches, having a pillar behind him. This is not Saturn, as Osworth interprets this card of the Bologna tarot, but rather the hermit, i.e. the very essence of the way of practical Hermeticism. For the winged old man before a pillar, supporting himself on 2 crutches, has nothing, iconographically, to do with Saturn, save for the advanced age, whilst the context, the pillar, wings and crutches, of the card portrays all that is essential, both as fulfillment and as trial, of the spiritual way of Hermeticism. To become a pillar is the aim of the hermit or Hermeticist. The means of raising oneself as a pillar are wings, and what becomes more and more difficult for one who becomes a pillar is horizontal movement. The contemplation which is established as a more or less permanent state in the soul by means of wings renders horizontal movement more and more difficult, the powers of the soul, understanding, imagination and will, being immersed in contemplation. The hermit of the Bologna tarot is therefore a Hermeticist, and iconographically the patriarch represents Hermes Trismegistus rather than Saturn, the oriental covering of his head and his dress being traditionally those of the aged Hermes Trismegistus. The Hermeticist, as portrayed in the card the hermit of the Bologna tarot, lives in the vertical, immobilized. He has become a spiritual stylite at the expense of movement in the horizontal. Here it is not a matter of ancient mythology, but rather of the arcanum of the practical and spiritual way of Hermeticism. The astral and etheric wings of a human being signify a more or less advanced degree of recovery of the divine likeness in him. For certainly it was the lot of man before the original sin to have wings. He lost them subsequently. How were they recovered? Wings are organs of the subtle bodies, astral and vital, and not any kind of activities of the conscious self. It is therefore a matter of the domain of the unconscious when it is a question of wings. It is a matter of the task of rendering spiritual endeavours turned towards God, such as prayer and meditation, semi-organic, i.e. to transform conscious acts of the self into psycho-vital currents of the subtle bodies. The Apostolic Council, pray constantly, 1 Thessalonians 5:17, is the key here. It is impossible to pray unceasingly in full consciousness, but it is certainly possible to carry over prayer from consciousness into the unconscious, where it can operate unceasingly. The astral and vital bodies can pray unceasingly, which is not possible for the conscious self. The latter can certainly, through its initiative, establish a current of unceasing prayer in consciousness at first, then carry it over into the psychic unconscious, or the astral body, and into the vital unconscious, or the etheric body. Yes, it can even carry it as far as the physical body, as is evident from the sincere accounts of a pilgrim to his spiritual father, a Russian book from an anonymous author of the past century on the practical training of the school of unceasing prayer. I have seen translations of this book in English, German, Dutch and French. the English translation being named The Way of a Pilgrim, London, 1954. It is described how the pilgrim, who is the author of the book, in waking up during the night, hears his heart beating distinctly the words of the prayer, "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner." Now it is unceasing prayer, established in the psychic and vital bodies, which forms the currents directed above in these bodies, and which can lead to the formation of wings. I say can because the formation of wings demands something still further, namely a current from above which moves to meet that from below. Wings are formed only when the two currents, that of human endeavour and that of grace, meet and unite. The devil of the 15th arcanum of the tarot also has wings, but his wings consist only of energy engendered from below. They are deprived of grace from above. Angelic wings, on the contrary, are due to the union of effort and grace, just as are those of the divine likeness to be recovered in man. It is divine grace which plays the decisive role here. In the last analysis, wings are a gift of divine grace. Pure humanism can create only the wings of Icarus, and the lot of Icarus is known, his wings of wax melted in the warmth of the sun, and the unfortunate Icarus fell to the earth. Regarding demonism, it can develop only the wings of a bat, i.e. those of darkness, which are organs by means of which one can plunge into the depths of darkness. The presence of authentic and legitimate wings in the human subconscious, i.e. the psychic and vital bodies, is not without effect on the consciousness of the human being. It manifests itself above all, and in general, as a constant orientation of consciousness towards God. Then man always has the feeling of the presence of God and the spiritual worlds, and nothing can take this feeling away from him or suffocate it in him. This feeling, that the Bible designates as walking with God or walking before the face of God, crystallizes itself into two unshakable convictions: that one can endure all for God, and that one can accomplish everything with God. Martyrdom and thaumaturgy are the two pillars on which faith rests, and through which it conquered the old world. Now it is the Gnostic wing which disposes consciousness towards martyrdom, and it is the magical wing which disposes it towards thaumaturgy. A winged human being is therefore disposed towards the heroic and towards the miraculous. This is the essential of the problem of wings. They are the opposite of legs because they are organs of contact with heaven, whilst legs are those of contact with the earth. The former put us in relationship with celestial gravitation, the latter put us in relationship with terrestrial gravitation. With respect to arms, and the angel of the card of the 14th arcanum has arms, they are related to the horizontal, i.e. to the fields of mutual attraction of beings who meet one another. If the law of wings is the love of God, that of arms is the love of neighbour, and the law of legs is the love of terrestrial nature. The angel of the card holds two vases united by a current of water. Thus we find ourselves right in the problem of fluids. The problem of fluids is that of the dynamic functioning of the whole human being, i.e. corporeal, psychic and spiritual. In reality, it amounts to that of life, understood as a comprehensive spiritual, psychic and corporeal process. For just as there exists a system of physical circulation, so also there exists a system of vital and astral circulation, which in its turn is simply a reflection of the system of circulation comprising spirit, soul and body, the threefold body, as a living unity. The principle underlying this total system of circulation is the divine likeness. And as it is this which has undergone the disfiguring effect of original sin, it is the mission of the guardian angel to see to it that the total system of circulation functions in as healthy a way as possible. The guardian angel therefore watches over the functioning of the system of spiritual, psychic, corporeal circulation, i.e. the health and the life of the whole human being. This is why the card of the 14th arcanum represents him to us as engaged in in the accomplishing of this office of regulating the system of circulation, or the human being's fluidic system. The system in question comprises several active centers, the lotuses, the nerve centers, the glands, to name only the principal ones. But the harmonious functioning of all these centers depends on a single thing, a single action which takes place at the key position. This is the current which constitutes the relationship between the image and the likeness in man. The monad, or the image, should not exist for nothing, nor should it inundate the system of circulation, or the likeness. In the first case, the human being would be deprived of the stimulation to live a truly human life. That is to say, he would not be orientated towards the aim of human existence. In the latter case, the human being would be shattered by the additional impulse coming from the monad, or the image, which would be an irreparable catastrophe. Now, it is a just measure in the relationship between the image and the likeness which has to be guarded, and which is in fact guarded by the guardian angel. This is why tradition has given the name Temperance to the 14th arcanum of the tarot, for it is a matter here of the measure in the fluidic relationship between the image and the likeness, which is necessary for life and health. Just measure in the fluidic relationship between the absolute radicalism of the monad, or the image, and the relativism of the phenomenal personality, or the likeness, constitutes the fundamental principle of spiritual, psychic, and corporeal health. This measure amounts to an always changing equilibrium between eternity and the moment, between the absolute and the relative, between contemplation and action, between the ideal and the phenomenal. Many relevant things can be said concerning the polarity of Mary and Martha, and have indeed been said, but we, all of us, live a healthy life only inasmuch as the two sisters in us are present and active as sisters, i.e., that they collaborate, having in view the third. No one can dispense with the Mary in himself, nor equally with the Martha in himself, and remain healthy in spirit, soul, and body. Pray and work cannot be replaced by any other formula, for one cannot live either without contemplation or without action. This is what Krishna made Arjuna understand in the Bhagavad Gita. Performing all actions always depending on me, he, man, through my favour, obtains the imperishable and eternal seat. Bhagavad Gita 18:56. And equally, this is what St. Bernard showed to advantage through his monastic reform, where contemplation and work were united, as also through his affirmation of Christian chivalry in his sermon on the Second Crusade and in the rules that he gave to the Templar order. Nowadays many criticize the saint for his intervention, sanctioning and encouraging the crusade, but what he did was simply to make an appeal to Christian Arjunas on the new field of Kurukshetra, where the two armies of Islam and Christianity had already been assembled for a battle without mercy some centuries before him. The battle had commenced in the 7th century of our era, when the Arabs invaded the eastern Christian countries. Charles Martel repulsed them at Poitiers in France, and through this victory in 732 saved Christian civilization and the West from Mohammedan conquest. Should one have been content with having saved the kernel of the West, and have taken only a defensive attitude, in the manner of the Byzantine Empire, which subsequently, little by little, became entirely conquered by the Mohammedans? The great battle of the 12th century was still not achieved. It was always in process. Can one demand of St. Bernard that he should have preached the necessity of abandoning the Holy Land to the Mohammedans, and of beginning a peaceful coexistence at the expense of the country where the cradle of Christianity is to be found? Be that as it may concerning the Crusades, St. Bernard advanced not only active contemplation for the monks, but also contemplative activity for the knights, just as Krishna did more than 15 centuries before him. The one and the other did so because they knew that man is at one and the same time a contemplative and an active being, that faith without works is death, and that equally works without faith are death. All this as theory is as clear as the day, but with respect to practice it is not thus so. Practice entails an arcanum, an intimate savoir-faire, which is the 14th major arcanum of the tarot, Temperance.